What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Talking About Baseball. Today is Weekly Recap number 2. As you know, you probably should have watched the Weekly Recap number 1. That'll show you how everything pretty much goes and how the video is going to go. But for all the people who did watch that video already, you know that we start off with the weekly walk-offs, so let's get it started there. This week, there was only 6 walk-offs, and 2 of them were by the same team. On the 6th, O'Neal Cruz, after not playing much of last year due to an ankle injury, rockets a single to beat the Orioles. On the 7th, the Pirates walk it off yet again with a throwing error from Gunnar Henderson after an amazing play. On the 9th, Salvador Perez walked it off for the so far surprisingly good Royals team. The very next day on the 10th, speaking of surprisingly good, the first place Guardians and Bo Naylor walk it off. And finally, just on Friday night, Lawrence Butler of the seemingly red-hot Athletics walks it off just on Friday night. Now we move into debuts every day. There was just a measly 10 debuts this week. Most were nobodies outside of star Jackson Holliday, the number 1 prospect in Major League Baseball. Unfortunately, he didn't do very great and will not be winning debut of the week. The other 9 players were Pedro Pages, Wenceel Perez, Josh Majewski, Blair Henley, Davis Wenzel, Dedinel Nunez, Spencer Arrighetti, Tyler J., and Max Schumerman. The debut of the week, despite not great debuts this week, Dedinel Nunez came in and pitched 2 innings, only allowing 1 run and striking out 3 for San Francisco, and he will win debut of the week for me. Once again, quite a few injuries, with most of them being pitchers, but definitely some big players on here. Starting off with the 10-day injured list, Geraldo Perdomo of the Diamondbacks is having torn meniscus surgery, so he'll probably be back in a lot more than 10 days, unfortunately. Luis Robert Jr. is out with a hip flexor strain. Carlos Correa is out with an oblique strain. Brent Rooker is out with an abdomen strain, and Brandon Lowe is out with a right oblique strain. Moving on to the 15-day, Nick Pivetta has a mild right flexor strain. Julian Merriweather has a rib stress fracture. John Brebbie of the White Sox has a right calf strain. Framber Valdez has left elbow soreness along with Josh Sborz, although his is right elbow soreness. And finally, for the 15-day, Chase Silseth has right elbow inflammation. Moving on to the 60-day, all 3 of the 4 of these players are out for the season, with one of them most likely going to be back around July or August. Trevor Story has a fractured glenoid in his shoulder, ending his season after getting surgery. Chris Murphy, also of the Red Sox, Trevor Story's teammate, had a successful Tommy John surgery just a couple days ago. Yoan Moncada is currently out with an adductor strain. He's the guy who's projected to come back. And finally, Spencer Strider of the Braves just got elbow surgery yesterday and will not be returning for the rest of the season. A massive blow to the Braves. Alright, now we move into the bread and butter of the video, the team recaps. Starting off with the AL East, in first place is the New York Yankees. They went 4-1 this week, bringing them up to 10-3. Their game of the week was going to be on the 8th. Juan Soto hit his first home run as a Yankee, and backed by a 6-run 5th inning, the Yankees took the win over Miami. In second place is the Orioles. They went 3-3 last week, going up to 8-5. Just on Thursday night, on the 11th, youngster Colton Cowser hit 2 home runs, while the Orioles scored 6 in the 10th to take the win. In third place, moving up a lot, is the Rays at 5-1 for the week and 8-6 total. Their game of the week is going to be last Saturday. They scored 5 runs in the 5th inning and 7 in the last 3 innings as the Rays power passed Colorado. In fourth place, the biggest drop of the entire week for any team, is the Red Sox. They went 1-5, bringing them down to 7-7. And their game of the week is, despite a streaky offense, they scored 12 runs, including 3 home runs, all in 1 inning against the Angels. And finally, in last place is the Blue Jays, going 2-4 this week, bringing them down to 6-8. Their game of the week was on the 8th, and their bullpen faltered, but they do still win 5-2. Moving on to the AL Central, we've got the first place Guardians. They didn't have a great week, going 3-2, but they're still at 9-3 for the season. Cleveland secured the win against the White Sox with a Bo Naylor walk-off single. Also, him and his brother Josh both hit home runs on National Siblings Day, and that was the 10th. In second place, the Tigers went 2-3, but the record is still going to be 8-4. Their game of the week was on the 12th. Tariq Skubal had yet another great start as they blew past Minnesota 8-2. The Royals went 4-1 this week, bringing their record up to 9-5. And on the 11th, after a 9-run first inning, Bobby Witt's 2 home runs and a 4-hit game for Bobby Witt Jr. as well, they crushed the Astros 13-3. In fourth is the Twins. They went 1-4 this week, going down to 4-7. Their game of the week was on Thursday the 10th. Edouard Julien's 2 home runs have them squeeze past the Dodgers 3-2. And finally, unsurprisingly, in last place is the 2-11 White Sox, going 1-5 this week. Newcomer Dominic Fletcher hit a go-ahead double in the 8th to beat the Guardians 7-5 on the 9th, and that was their only win all week. Moving on to the AL West, this division has been surprisingly terrible so far. The Rangers went 3-4 to go down to 8-6, although they are still in first place with a pretty solid record. Their game of the week was on the 12th, with a 6-run third inning propels them past their state rival Houston Astros. In second place are the Angels. They're at 7-6 after going 3-3 this week. On the 12th, also just like the Rangers, Reed Detmers threw 6 innings of over. Reed Detmers threw over 6 innings of scoreless ball as the Angels scored 3 in the first and win 7-0 over Boston. The Athletics went 5-1 this week, very surprising, bringing them up to 6-8. Their game of the week was on the 7th and backed by Zach Gelof's 4 hits and 4 RBIs, backed by Zach Gelof's 4 hits and 4 RBIs, and the fact that they scored 5 runs in the first 2 innings. The A's win 7-1 over Detroit. And finally, tied with them in third is the Mariners, who went 3-3 this week, just like the Angels, although they are at 6-8. Their game of the week, the Mariners scored 5 in the 10th, mainly off of a Cal Raleigh go-ahead 2-run home run to beat the Blue Jays. And finally, in last place is the currently very lowly Astros. They're only 4-11 right now with a 2-5 record in the last week. Their game of the week was on the 8th, where Yordan Alvarez, Kyle Tucker, and Victor Caratini carried the offense as the Stros win 10-5. Moving on to the NL, we have the NL East to begin with, and atop that division is still the Atlanta Braves. They went 4-2 in the last week, bringing them up to 8-4. Their game of the week was on the 6th. They were down 8-2, and they came all the way back against the Diamondbacks to win 9-8, powered by an Austin Riley go-ahead single. The Phillies went 4-3 this week. For some reason, I don't have their total record, so I'll tell you what that is later. Their game of the week was on the 8th. They scored 2 in the 10th and 3 in the last 2 innings to narrowly beat. Moving on to the third place Mets, they went 4-2, bringing them up to 6-7. Their game of the week was on the 11th. They absolutely destroyed the Braves, 16-4, scoring in every inning except for 3, along with a Tyrone Taylor pinch hit grand slam. 5-8 total. The Nationals scored 8 against the Giants, propelled by youngster Trey Lipscomb, who had multiple hits and multiple stolen bases on the 8th. And finally, in last place, they finally won their first game, along with their first 2 games, going 2-4, bringing the Marlins up to 2-12. On the 7th, Miami got their first win of the year with a 6-run first inning, while Jazz Chisholm and Nick Gordon both hit home runs. Moving on to the NL Central, you've got the Brewers at 4-2 and 9-3 on the season. On the 12th, Freddie Peralta allowed just 1 run with 11 strikeouts, and backed by 11 runs from the Milwaukee offense, they won. The Pirates in second place went 4-2, bringing them up to 10-4. On the 6th, O'Neal Cruz, like we talked about, hit the first Pittsburgh walk-off of the year to win 5-4. In third place are the Cubs, who've been struggling a little bit, going 2-4 last week, but they're still at 7-6. And with a huge offensive game on the 6th, the Cubs have a 5-run second inning to just beat the Dodgers 9-7, despite getting out-hit. Tied with them in third is the Reds. Their game of the week was on the 12th. Elly De La Cruz hit a 450-foot bomb, while the Reds scored 5 in the third inning to beat the White Sox 11-1. And finally, in last place is the Cardinals, who went 3-3, bringing their record to 7-7. And their game of the week was also on the 12th. They scored 6 in the first 3 innings as Lars Nootbaar goes back as Lars Nootbaar goes yard right after coming off the IL. Finally, moving on to our last division in the NL West, you've got the Dodgers at 3-3, bringing their record to 10-6. On the seventh, their game of the week was on the 7th. A gem by Yoshinobu Yamamoto with 5 Ks and a 5-inning shutout. The Dodgers beat the Cubs 4-1. Second place was the Padres, going 4-2 this week, bringing their record up to 8-8. Their game of the week was on the 12th. Jackson Merrill hit a go-ahead single in the 11th to beat the Dodgers 8-7 in extras. In third place is the surprisingly bad Diamondbacks team so far. They went 2-4, bringing their record down to 6-8. Their game of the week was on the 10th, where Eugenio Suarez had a go-ahead double as the Diamondbacks come back from a 3-2 deficit and went through 5-3. And finally, the bottom two teams both went 2-4, the Giants and the Rockies. The Giants now stand at 5-9. Their game of the week was on the 10th. Jordan Hicks pitched another great game for them, as the Giants' offense is also very good, winning 7-1. And finally, the Rockies are at the bottom are at 4-10. Their game of the week was on the 12th. Colorado's offense went off, scoring 12 runs off 20 hits to beat the Blue Jays at home. And finally, we move on to our last segment called In Other News. Most of it, once again, is about Shohei Ohtani. After the Shohei Ohtani gambling scandal, it is all over. It was announced that his former translator, Ippei Mizuhara, had stolen over $16 million from Shohei to pay off his illegal gambling money. Speaking of Shohei Ohtani, he is breaking even more records, hitting his 175th home run ever to tie Hideki Matsui as the most home runs by a Japanese player. And finally, just yesterday, Salvador Perez hits a milestone home run with the 250th of his career. I'll see you guys next time on Talking About Baseball. I hope you enjoyed this weekly recap, and I'll see you next Sunday with weekly recap number 3. Bye.